Angolan President João Lourenço inaugurated an extension unit on the Luanda refinery, which aims to increase the production of crude oil products fourfold, especially petrol. An agreement with the Italian company Eni was also signed to improve the production and marketing processes. The main highlight is increasing the production capacity of refined petroleum products such as diesel and gasoline. The situation in the country, which has significant crude oil production but until recently had little capacity to transform it, was somewhat incomprehensible. The new plant will pump up Angola's fuel production to 1,580,000 liters a day, contributing to 15% reduction in annual imports, according to state oil company Sonangol. The country will save a lot of foreign exchange on gasoline imports, not only with the inauguration of this unit, but also with the inauguration of all the units that I have just mentioned. So, on the whole, in a few years' time, in 2-3 years' time, I believe that the reduction of foreign exchange expenditure on imports will be quite large. We will reduce the import of gasoline by 15% from current values. This reduction in terms of money will save about $300 million a year. Angola is sub-Saharan Africa's second largest oil exporters after Nigeria, but according to government figures, it produces only about 20% of the refined products it needs. In Burkina Faso, a group of lawyers representing the civil parties in the case of former assassinated leader Thomas Sankara on Friday demanded the execution of arrest warrant against the ex-leader Blaise Compaore, who just returned to the country. The group is now calling upon the judicial and political authorities to assume their responsibilities and arrest the former leader. The group plotters, the pseudo-reconciliers, are simply trying to kill the rule of law and democracy in Burkina Faso. Take the other convicts, my friend Diendere. He is serving his sentence. You must say that with dignity. But why is he a Burkinabe and condemned? He is serving his sentence. What's the difference for Blaise Compaore? He too is condemned. For him, they roll out the red carpet. Burkina strongman Lieutenant Colonel Paul Henry Sandaoga Damiba says an ex-president summit he organized aims to provide Burkina Faso with the peace and cohesion rather than impunity after controversy erupted following the invitation of former President Blaise Compaore. The process is not to provide impunity, but to contribute to the search for a solution for a Burkina Faso of peace and cohesion. The summit meeting of former leaders comes as Burkina Faso grapples with soaring jihadi violence linked to Al-Qaeda and Islamic State groups that killed thousands and displaced nearly 2 million people.
José Eduardo dos Santos became the leader of the MPLA and president of the Republic of Angola on September the 20th, 1979. He was 37 years old. Agostinho Neto's successor had accumulated governing experience by heading the Angolan diplomatic service and holding the posts of Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Planning after independence in 1975. Angola was then at war with UNITA, led by Jonas Savimbi, and with South Africa. In the late 1980s, international conditions were created for the appeasement of the civil war in Angola. In 1991, José Eduardo dos Santos and Jonas Savimbi signed an agreement mediated by Portugal for the first free and democratic elections in Angola. The United Nations supervised vote was considered free and fair despite shortcomings, but UNITA rejected the results and took up arms again. In 2002, with the death of Jonas Savimbi, the civil war in Angola comes to an end. In April, the government's military chiefs and UNITA's chief of staff signed the peace agreement under the eye of José Eduardo dos Santos in the National Assembly. Angolans go back to the polls in 2008 and 2010. The constitution is changed. The president is elected as head of the list of the party with the most votes. José Eduardo dos Santos runs in 2012 for what would be his last presidential term. In 2017, he leaves the head of state, a post he'd held for 38 years. The following year, he leaves political life for good by ceding the leadership of the MPLA to João Lourenço, his successor in the presidency of Angola. In 2019, he settles in Barcelona in order to follow medical treatments in the clinic where he dies less than 2 months before his 80th birthday. Pro-democracy groups in Sudan have announced the formation of a revolutionary council. Its aim to close ranks against former leader General Abdel Fattah al-Burhan, rejecting his offer of a civilian government. Burhan led a coup in October last year that derailed a transition to civilian rule. The move unleashed near-weekly protests and calls for his resignation. The Revolutionary Council will make it possible to regroup revolutionary forces under the orders of a unified leadership, sit-ins, civil disobedience and strikes, to direct political action by drafting a unified political charter based on the charter proposed by the resistance committees and other organisations of the revolutionary force. The transitional government Burhan uprooted was forged between the military and civilian factions in 2019. It followed mass protests and prompted the military to oust longtime dictator Omar al-Bashir. According to another coordinator, the new council will consist of 100 members. 50% for the resistance committees, 20% for political parties, 20 seats for the trade unions and professional organisations, and the remaining 10 seats, 2 for the families of martyrs, 4 for the armed movements of Al-Hilu and Abdel Wahid, and 2 for the army pensioners. A total of 114 people have been killed in a crackdown against protesters since the October coup. Opponents and experts foresee this new body being used to sideline any new government and maintain the military's wide-reaching economic interests under the pretext of defence and security imperatives.
A year after the worst unrest to hit South Africa in decades, only 50 people have been convicted over the violence, with the suspected masterminds and thousands of others still awaiting trial, the Defence Minister said Friday. More than 350 people were killed during almost 10 days of rioting that followed the incarceration of former President Jacob Zuma last July.
Whoever it is who is behind the last year, it must be very clear that we will not rest. We don't care who it is. They will face what they must face. They will not be shortcuts. And sometimes when you want to deal with issues, you rush because there is public pressure. But sometimes in the rush, you create blunders and the people who should face the prosecution spring away.
Authorities say that 300 cases were finalized through non-prosecution, while 2,900 cases were unfounded. The remaining pending cases include 36 suspected linked to murders.
At a level of government, we have no interest in protecting one faction against the other. Anybody who goes against what is established norm, what we fought for, must then face the wrath of the law.
The unrest was sparked when former President Jacob Zuma was detained and slapped with a 15-month sentence for refusing to testify before an inquiry into state graft. Widespread poverty exacerbated by the coronavirus pandemic was also widely seen as a contributing factor.